my beloved Betties. Now, we all know the traditional fairy tales that we all grew up with: Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, Brothers Grimm, Hans Christian Andersen, and of course Disney. And it's pretty well known that these stories were not necessarily always meant for children. They were pretty dark tales in and of their own right, and in modern times they've been pretty friendlied up. Even the earlier Disney movies, which are quite dark by modern standards, are pretty tame compared to their original source material. But the interesting thing is, many of these fairy tales that we know and love actually have roots in the real world, with real people, events and circumstances all leading around what eventually led to their immortalization as fairy tales. So I'm really excited to be introducing a new series which will be delving into the roots of these fairy tales that we all know and love. I'm Emma Hibbs, and this is Truth Behind the Tale. And we're kicking things off with one of my personal favourites, Snow White. The story of Snow White was first written down by Wilhelm and Jacob Grimm in 1812 in their first publication of fairy tales, but because the brothers Grimm mainly recorded fairy tales as opposed to writing them themselves, the tale had probably been around for a little bit before they actually came and recorded it. And Snow White is one of my personal fairy tales to bring to a conversation as proof for how friendlied up the modern version is compared to its roots. Necrophiliac prince falls in love with 7-year-old girl's corpse! But as with many of these old stories, a lot of it has been fictionalised and various bits embellished and added over the years as it's been retold by various people and through various generations. But go far enough back in time and we find two sources for where the tale of Snow White potentially comes from. The first story is of one Marguerite von Waldeck, the daughter of Count Philip IV of Waldeck. Marguerite was from a town called Waldeck in northeastern Germany, and her father owned various copper mines in the area. There's evidence that children worked in these copper mines because they would have been small enough to squeeze down the tiny tunnels to get to the copper ore. And even if there weren't children in the mines, there were definitely very small people working there. So with this in mind, it's not really that difficult to see where these small children or small workers would have eventually morphed into the dwarves over time working in their mines. In fact, the child labourers would have lived together, with about 20 sharing a single room. Marguerite was famous throughout the area for her beauty, and like Snow White, she also had a stepmother who was very strict with her. Around the age of 13, she left her father's home and travelled through the 7 hills towards modern-day Limburg in the Netherlands to stay with her mother's brother. After moving through the courts, she eventually found herself in Brussels, where her beauty caught the attention of Crown Prince Philip of Spain. Enamoured with her beauty, he fell in love with her, but they could never be together because Marguerite was Lutheran and Philip was Catholic. Shortly after meeting him, Marguerite became very ill, and in 3 surviving letters to her father, it's evident that her condition got worse over the next few years. In her last will and testament, her handwriting is shaky, a telltale sign of poisoning, which many people at the time testified that she had suffered. Unfortunately, she never recovered from her mysterious illness, and she died at the age of just 21. But we know that her stepmother wasn't involved because she was already dead by this point. Another story which may have factored into the Snow White we know also comes from Germany, this time from Bavaria, from a town called Lohr. In the castle there lived Prince Philipp Christoph von Oerthel. What's with all these Philips? And his young daughter, Maria Sophia. Born in June of 1729, Maria Sophia was a kind and beautiful girl who often helped the poor around her father's castle, even though she was partially blind herself. After her mother died when Maria Sophia was 13, her father remarried a woman named Claudia Elisabeth von Reichenstein, a German countess. Elizabeth was not kind to her stepchildren. She greatly favoured the children from her first marriage, and there were reports of her being domineering and extremely strict. Prince Philip, however, loved his new wife, and he even gifted her a certain mirror. At the time, Lohr was famous for its glass-making, and there was a company in particular that made such beautiful mirrors that the mirrors were said to always speak the truth. There's a hypothesis that Snow White's glass coffin in the fairy tale is directly linked to the Law glassmakers. But coming back to mirrors, the one which was given to Claudia Elizabeth was actually an acoustic toy which spoke mainly in aphorisms or general principles or truths, proclaiming such things as, "Oh, she is a beauty." The upper right corner actually includes a clear reference to self-love. These kinds of mirrors were really popular as gifts for the European courts during this time period, so it's no surprise that she may have been gifted one like this. Now, onto that poisoned apple. While there's little evidence of Claudia Elizabeth poisoning Maria Sophia, the toxic plant deadly nightshade grows in abundance around Law, and it probably would have grown there around the time period of these women as well. One particular detail which may link the stories of Maria Sophia and Marguerite is actually the miners. The neighbouring town to Law, Bieber, not that Bieber, is a mining village also. Set among 7 hills, it also used child labour as its main means of extracting the ore. Interestingly, the miners in Bieber were said to wear brightly coloured hoods, which is often how the dwarves themselves in the fairy tale have been represented right back to the Brothers Grimm. And the 7 mountains may have factored in to there being 7 dwarves in the fairy tale. Out of these 2 sources, Maria Sophia's is the one which is usually claimed to be the main inspiration. It's possible that the Brothers Grimm were also aware of her story, with her lifetime falling closer to their own than Marguerite's. But personally, I believe that somewhere along the line, the tales of these 2 women have been woven together to create the Snow White that we know and recognise today. But these origins are not forgotten. If you go to Law today, you can still go to the castle where Maria Sophia lived, where there are a pair of 200-year-old shoes which are claimed to belong to her, as well as the talking mirror. Dare you ask it who is the fairest of them all? Thank you very much for joining me for Truth Behind the Tale. I really hope you guys enjoyed this first episode. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up, leave me a comment, and if there's any fairy tales in particular that you would like me to dig into, then please feel free to let me know and I will put them on the list. Truth Behind the Tale will be coming on the last Tuesday of every month until further notice, until we have exhausted all the fairy tales that you guys want to see. But I want to thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you all very soon in another video. Bye!